Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to MBNK News. I am Veronique Lawson for this special news report edition. One of MBN's mission is to deliver factual and independent news reporting each month, focusing on the important story that we deem worth giving over, as we construct them with the original truth, the kingdom truth. Our aim is continuing to deliver some integral updates with the most impactful and current news story on the latest global headlines. This month, editors' picks are as following. So let's start of it. With the national news coverage, hot topic on a general agenda are Venezuela, President Maduro and wife Celia Flores capture, U.S. massive withdrawal from international group, welfare fraud scandal in Minnesota, Air Force One electrical issue, war, economic forum, globalization as we know it is dead. Let's get in. January 3rd, this year began with a capstone breaking news. Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores were captured by U.S. Delta Force and brought to face charges of narco-terrorism on American soil. Their first court appearance in New York, surrounded by heavily armed federal agent security, is tense at the Lower Manhattan courthouse, where protesters have gathered demanding Maduro to be released. Maduro's arrest has left a power vacuum in Venezuela. President Trump says the new leader must cooperate with his administration. Let us watch the tale from Inside Edition. Thank you.
Face the wrath of American justice for Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia. Dressed in matching tan prison uniforms, they're led in handcuffs from a chopper, headed to their first court appearance, surrounded by heavily armed federal agents. It was an all-hands-on-deck operation, getting the captured first couple of Venezuela from a detention center in Brooklyn to federal court in Manhattan. The early morning odyssey began with the Maduroses loaded into an armored truck, then transferred to an SUV, then to a helicopter for the brief flight to Lower Manhattan. Another armored truck transported them to the federal courthouse for their arraignment. Security is intense. A ring of steel surrounds the courthouse, where protesters have gathered demanding Maduro be released. Stephen Fabian is there.
In an extraordinary hearing, Maduro faced charges of drug trafficking, narco-terrorism, and conspiracy to import cocaine. He told the judge he had been kidnapped. The judge asked, "Are you Nicolas Maduro Moros?" A defiant Maduro responded in Spanish, "I am the president of Venezuela. I consider myself a prisoner of war. I was captured at my home in Caracas." The judge cut him off. "There will be time and place to get into all of this." Asked for his plea, Maduro said, "I'm innocent. I'm not guilty. I am a decent man." Then the judge turned to Maduro's wife and asked for her plea. "Not guilty, completely innocent," she said.
After court, it was back to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, a facility notorious for its conditions and violence. It's known as hell on earth and home, if you can call it that, to many accused high-profile detainees. So who else is in there? Luigi Mangione, accused killer of the United Healthcare CEO. He's on the 4th floor, while Maduro and his wife Celia are reportedly on the 9th floor in an isolation wing. Sean P. Diddy Combs was also held here during his trial last year. Ghislaine Maxwell was an inmate here, as was the singer R. Kelly. Larry Levine did time at the Metropolitan Detention Center. He's now a prison consultant. What are the conditions like inside?
He's living on a mattress on a concrete slab. The toilet is a steel combination toilet, no moving parts. He probably is not getting any sleep because they're leaving the lights on 24/7. It's probably very cold in there because they run the air conditioning 24/7.
Eyebrows were raised when President Trump denigrated opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who seems like the obvious choice to replace Maduro, After all, she won the Nobel Peace Prize.
I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect.
But according to the Washington Post, Trump is upset that she didn't turn down the prize and give it to him. If she had turned it down and said, I can't accept it because it's Donald Trump's, she'd be the president of Venezuela today. So who's next in the president's crosshairs? Colombia, Cuba, or Greenland? This map, posted by top Trump aide Stephen Miller's wife Katie, shows Greenland covered in a U.S. flag with the caption, soon.
We need Greenland.
Thank you, Inside Edition, for that report. Next, on January 7, President Trump issued a memo announcing U.S. withdrawal from 66 international groups, treaties, and conventions, 31 of which are United Nations related. The withdrawals include the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. Secretary of State Marco Rubio conducted a review of all international organizations, conventions, and treaties to which the U.S. belong at Trump's request. Equally important, welfare fraud scandal in Minnesota. Just like it wasn't enough. A complex fraud ring in Minnesota have stolen billions of dollars from state programs for their personal enrichment in the United States and abroad. Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent said, under Democratic Governor Tim Walz, welfare fraud has spiraled out of control. Billions of dollars intended for feeding hungry children, housing disabled seniors, and providing services for children in need were diverted to benefit Somalia fraud rings. Minnesota is only the tip of the iceberg. Keep an eye on California, New York, and other states. Let us turn our attention to the 10th. Thank you.
Hill, lawmakers will look for answers about the massive alleged fraud in Minnesota. Independent journalist Nick Shirley is one of the witnesses set to testify. He put together that viral video of a Somali daycare center that has brought the scandal to national attention. Let's bring in Roger Severino, the Vice President of Economy and Domestic Policy for the Heritage Foundation. Give us a sense, Roger, of just how bad or how big this Minnesota fraud case is.
Well, Nick Shirley has done the country a huge service by exposing that perhaps these millions of dollars going to Minnesota through Governor Walz perhaps was being used to fund massive fraud. Where are those kids? And the scale is rather astounding because this is not the first time Minneapolis has had this problem. This has been a recurring theme. A criminal gang that was using massive Medicaid and welfare fraud, and this was a known factor. The states receive federal funds for welfare programs. They have to spend the money responsibly. And the first casualty of the scandal may have been Governor Walz himself, who is no longer running because this scandal, I think, has gotten to such a large proportion. How deep does it go? Well, there's only one way to find out. We need to audit all of these programs immediately, and I'm sure they will uncover millions more of this sort of fraud.
We have a sort of a cheat sheet on what the money was supposed to do, and we can put that on the screen for our viewers. What the funds were meant for, things like feeding children, helping recovering addicts find a place to live, helping disabled adults live independently, one-on-one therapy for autistic children. Now, nobody would fault those goals, but the funds allegedly went to wire transfers to China and East Africa, a villa in the Maldives Islands, first-class plane tickets, luxury vehicles, lakefront property in Minnesota, designer jewelry, and crypto investments. Pretty appalling that the taxpayers of Minnesota were hit up for projects like those. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people should be outraged. There are real people that are hurting, that should be helped, that are poor and need some helping hands. But the abuse is just astounding. It's a double fault. Not only is it robbing money from the American taxpayer, it's also robbing money from people who are supposed to receive the benefit of these programs. And again, the rot goes all the way up to the top. We already have evidence that Frey actually petitioned to continue these programs going with his Department of Education. And how much did they know? When did they know it? Were they getting political benefits? Were they getting a solid block of votes because these groups were receiving this money in this particular area? All right, these questions have to be answered, and there has to be real oversight. Congress needs to demand that every state that receives any penny of federal funds are responsible for the fraud that happens under their watch. And if they don't fix it, their funds should be cut.
The congressman from Arizona, Andy Biggs, was on with us yesterday, and he's going to be part of that congressional investigation. Listen to what he has to say.
So we're going to bring in an investigator to give us the breadth of some of the fraud in Minnesota. So we know certain programs. This will go further. Then we'll have Nick Shirley tell us what he found. But we also will bring in someone who runs a legitimate beneficiary of these services, and she'll tell us about how services can't be fully paid for because so much money gets diverted to fraud.
That is the tragedy here. As I mentioned before, I mean, there are people who could use some help, who need some legitimate help from taxpayers, and all of that has been siphoned off, apparently, by a bunch of fraudsters.
Yeah, and HHS froze a lot of this money until we get these answers, right? The buck has to stop somewhere. We can't just completely open up the siphon for money to leave federal coffers and we don't know what happens to it. It's being spent on crypto scams. Who knows what it's going to? And it's very easy. You send somebody, just like the citizen journalists did, knock on the doors, right? And say, hey, we're here to audit the program. And you do that and you'll see this fraud dry up quickly. But there has not been the political will because people have benefited from this. All right. The worst part of the interpretation is this a way of being sort of a vote buying scheme that, hey, we'll look the other way if we'll get votes in these cities. That's what we got to end if that's actually what's going on.
And the explosive growth in some of those programs should have told somebody that there were problems. But, you know, whoever the auditors were asleep at the switch, it seems.
Well, this is the problem with our welfare state, right? You give the money that's meant to help people in need, and you go through a federal program, then you block grants to the states, and there's bureaucrats up and down. It's not their money. Right? It's the taxpayers' money. So they don't have the incentives aligned to actually find out where the money is going. And we spend so much on waste, fraud, and abuse in our welfare program. If we just simply got rid of that, we could fund so much of people who are really in need for job training programs, things that give them a hand up. But our welfare program is this corrupt machine where the politicians look the other way. They hope to get some votes at the end of it. And the people who really need it are the ones who are being hurt by all this fraud.
Yeah, and we could reduce the tremendous federal deficit as well if we could spend some money in the right places. Roger Severino from the Heritage Foundation. Roger,
Thank you, Roger Severino and Fox News, for that. Indeed, the bus stopped there, and then the welfare are really a fraud. They are frauders. Wow. Couldn't say much for that. Aren't we allowed to ask why law enforcement is treated as cruelty, why scrutiny is framed as persecution, and certainly why accountability is suddenly controversial? Moving on to the next item, Air Force One electrical issue. Air Force One electrical issue caused a delay of President Trump flying to Davos, Switzerland for the 2026 World Economic Forum. President Donald Trump planned Air Force One return to Joint Base Andrews about an hour after departing for Switzerland on Tuesday evening. Why? White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the decision to return was made after takeoff when the crew aboard Air Force One identified a minor electrical issue and out of an abundance of caution decided to turn around. A reporter on board said the light in the press cabin on the aircraft went out briefly after takeoff, but no explanation was immediately offered. About a half hour into the flight, reporters were told the plane would be turning around. Trump boarded another aircraft, an Air Force C-32, a modified Boeing 757, normally used by the president for domestic trips. The smaller airport and continue on with with his trip to the World Economic Forum in Davos shortly after midnight. What is happening with Boeing? Something is fishing there. Let us turn our attention to the tale.
Our correspondent who's been on Air Force One dozens of times, when the call comes in and the pilot gets on the overhead and says, hey, folks, we're turning around, what's your thought if you're in the media?
Yeah, the first thing that would usually happen in a circumstance like this one, Trace, is ultimately someone from press will come back. It could have been Caroline. It could have been somebody else from the comm shop. They'll come back, and then they will tell the press individually, or basically collectively. There's usually about a dozen or so back in the back. That includes the pool, and they will tell them, because of what's happened, this is what we're going to do, and then you'll get something perhaps by the overhead announcement. There's something I did notice as I was looking at the pictures. You can tell the military attaché was the first person to come off, and there are usually several of them, somewhere between, say, a half dozen and maybe more than a dozen, depending on the medical staff as well. They are a level below where the press is usually seated, which, as you know, is near the rear of the aircraft, and they would immediately spring into action, obviously, and come upstairs and let you know what was happening. And then, of course, I've been watching them as they have been the first to disembark from the aircraft. I'm trying to get a sense here of how quickly they can move some of the material. As you know, when you're talking about transporting to a major event like Davos, we're talking about the beast, we're talking about gobs of information and material, both the kind that is obviously mobile, but also lots of paper and computers, etc. So I'm just trying to take a look here to see what they're going to be bringing off. It will probably be everything that the president and his senior staff needs to quickly get on the next aircraft to make their way over to Davos as soon as possible.
Yeah, and speaking of Davos, Kevin, stand by if you would. I want to bring in, just very quickly, give you an idea of who's on board. You have, as we said, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is on there, Susie Wiles, James Blair, Bo Harrison, Stephen Miller, Robert Gabriel, Stephen Chung, Kevin Hassett, Caroline Leavitt, Will Scharf, Ross Worthington, and the Ambassador Monica Crowley are on board, as well as, a full slate of press clearly on board this thing. And the question to you, I'm going to bring in Jack Posobiec here, but back to you, Kevin Corf, very quickly. Would you anticipate that they would try to get the press and all of the cabinet members on the same plane with the president heading back across to Davos?
This is why they pay the big bucks, my friend. You asked the right question. My suspicion is no. I would have the press come separately. Back in the day, we used to fly a press charter, which was separate from Air Force One on occasion. Now, the pool would obviously be on Air Force One, but then the overwhelming majority of the press would travel either commercial or by charter. I suspect they will have them separate, although it would still be, I think, wise to have some sort of a pool presence traveling with the president.
Thank you, Fox News, for that report. And indeed, Kevin, it is wise to have the press still travel with a president to the same aircraft. Thank you. Next, 2026 marks the 56th World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, attended by thousands of business leaders, politicians, and academics for the annual meeting in the Swiss Mountain Resort, which usually focus on the state of the global economy and its toughest challenges, from the climate crisis to inequality. However, the meeting this year was among the most volatile weeks for a transatlantic relationship in recent history, marked by a series of disruptive statements from President Trump that unsettled global markets and strained relations with some of America's closest allies, on topics that range from Greenland to Gaza. On the other hand, some international reports state, I quote, "This was a turbulent week as President Trump dramatic threat to slap tariff on 8 European countries, including the UK, France, and Germany, if they failed to back his attempt to size Greenland, sort of a dog-eating-dog geopolitical center." An audible sense of relief came after President Trump revealed he would not use force to take Greenland, despite the fear of dissent that was palpable among the assembled elite. Let's turn our attention to this 3-minute condensed President Trump speech in Davos. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Larry. It's great to be back in beautiful Davos, Switzerland, and to address so many respected business leaders, so many friends, few enemies. Certain places in Europe are not even recognizable, frankly, anymore. They're not recognizable. And we can argue about it, but there's no argument. Friends come back from different places. I don't want to insult anybody and say I don't recognize it. And that's not in a positive way. That's in a very negative way. And I love Europe, and I want to see Europe go good, but it's not heading in the right direction. This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America on the northern frontier of the Western Hemisphere. That's our territory. It is therefore a core national security interest of the United States of America. And in fact, it's been our policy for hundreds of years to prevent outside threats from entering our hemisphere. And we've done it very successfully. We've never been stronger than we are now. That's why American presidents have sought to purchase Greenland. It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have. They've acquired. There's nothing wrong with it. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. But the problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%. But I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. If we gave them the call, gentlemen, we are being attacked. We're under attack by such and such a nation. I know them all very well. I'm not sure that they'd be there. I know we'd be there for them. I don't know that they'd be there for us. We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
Thanks, Bloomberg News, for that condensed speech of President Trump. Seems like the United States are rewriting the history, reordering the economy and fronting the AI and technology. Onto that note, Elon Musk made a late appearance at Davos, extolled the virtue of solar energy as a vital and cheap way of powering AI data center and factories. Musk presents robotics as an engine for economic acceleration, suggesting ubiquitous automation could unlock productivity gains and on a scale comparable to past industrial revolution. He also predicted a future where robots outnumber humans with humanoid systems embedded across industry, healthcare, and domestic life. He highlighted elder care as a key use case in aging society facing labor shortages, suggesting that robotics could compensate for demographic decline rather than relying solely on migration or extended working life. Additionally, Musk indicated public scale of Tesla Optimus humanoid robot could begin by 2027, once reliability thresholds are met, and also argue autonomous driving is largely resolved, pointing the expanding robot taxi deployment in the US and imminent regulatory decision in Europe and China. What is just happening? Let us turn our attention to the tail.
Into the dirt, the meaningful component about technology, the possibilities. I want to talk about AI and robotics, energy, space, and the progress ultimately coming down to engineering discipline, scale, execution. And few people, if not anyone, has the experience and the fortitude to confront these issues head on. Not just the ideas, but the execution across so many different technologies, Elon, and that's why I thought it was important for us to have this dialogue here in Davos. So you're presently building on AI, on robotics, on space, on energy, all at the same time. When you look across those efforts, what do they have in common from an engineering standpoint?
Well, they're all very difficult technology challenges, but the overall goal of my companies is to maximize the future of civilization, like basically maximize the probability that civilization has a great future, and to expand consciousness beyond Earth. So if you take SpaceX, for example, SpaceX is about advancing rocket technology to the point where we can extend life and consciousness beyond Earth, to the moon, to Mars, eventually to other star systems. And I think we should always view consciousness, life as we know it, as precarious and delicate, because to the best of our knowledge, we don't know of life anywhere else. You know, I'm often asked, are there aliens among us? And I'll say that I am one, but...
Or you're from the future.
They don't believe me.
Okay.
But I think if anyone would know if there are aliens among us, it would be me. We have 9,000 satellites up there, and not once have we had to maneuver around an alien spaceship. So I'm like, I don't know. Bottom line is, I think we need to assume that life and consciousness is extremely rare, and it might only be us. And if that's the case, then we need to do everything possible to ensure that the light of consciousness is not extinguished, because we're effectively, the way I view it is, the image in my mind is of a tiny candle in a vast darkness, a tiny candle of consciousness that could easily go out. And that's why it's important to make life multiplanetary, such that if there is a natural disaster or a man-made disaster on Earth, that consciousness continues. That's the purpose of SpaceX. Tesla is obviously about sustainable technology, and also at this point we've sort of added to our mission sustainable abundance. So with robotics and AI, this is really the path to abundance for all. If you say, you know, people often talk about solving global poverty, or essentially how do we give everyone a very high standard of living. I think the only way to do this is AI and robotics, which doesn't mean that it is without its issues. I mean, we need to be very careful with AI. We need to be very careful with robotics. We don't want to find ourselves in a James Cameron movie, Terminator. He's great movies, love his movies, but we don't want to be in Terminator, obviously. But if you have ubiquitous AI that is essentially free or close to it, and ubiquitous robotics, then you will have an explosion in the global economy, an expansion in the global economy that is truly beyond all precedent.
Elon, can that expansion be broad?
Yes.
Or is it narrow? And how can that be created? How can it broaden the global economy?
Yeah, I mean, the way to think of it is that if you have a large number of humanoid robots, the economic output is the average productivity per robot times the number of robots.
Right.
And actually, my prediction is in the benign scenario, of the future that the robots will actually make so many robots and AI that they will actually saturate all human needs. Meaning you won't be able to even think of something to ask the robot for at a certain point. There will be such an abundance of goods and services, because my prediction is that there'll be more robots than people. So,
but how do you then have human purpose in that scenario?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing's perfect, but I mean, it is a necessary. You can't have both. You can't have work that has to be done and amazing abundance for all. Because if it's work that has to be done, then you and only some people can do it, then you can't have abundance.
Then it's narrow.
Yeah, it's narrow. Yeah. Exactly. So, but if you have billions of humanoid robots, and I think there will be, I think everyone on Earth is going to have one and going to want one, because who wouldn't want a robot to, assuming it's very safe, watch over your kids, take care of your pet. If you have elderly parents, a lot of friends of mine have said they have elderly parents. It's very difficult to take care of them.
Expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive, and there just aren't enough people to take care of there aren't enough young people to take care of the old people.
Right.
So if you had a robot that could take care of and protect an elderly parent, I think that would be great. That would be an amazing thing to have. I think we will have those things. So, I mean, overall, I'm very optimistic about the future. I think we're headed for a future of amazing abundance, which is very cool. And definitely, we are in the most interesting time in history. I think there's a more interesting time in history.
Thanks, Forbes News, for that great report. Well, at least now we know that Elon is an alien from his own mouth confession. Needed to say, welcome to the future, and let's keep an eye on that. Last but not least, 2020 US election is not over yet. A plausible mandatory voter ID for US citizens for future vote is on the way. Similarly, last week at the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, the spectacle of American politicians attacking the goose that laid the golden egg continued with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick went on the neither European for criticizing Trump's broad tariff, saying, and quote, "Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why will Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery." Then echoing with this statement, and quote, "The Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America," Lutnick declared. The world figures, business leaders, and other attendees during last Tuesday panel discussion. Globalization is a fair policy. It is what the wealth has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it, he added. Let's watch the tape from DRM News. Thank you.
For which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies. Okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries. Why would you do that? Why would the United States of America, which has oil and natural gas, try to convert to all electricity? China does not have oil and natural gas. Electricity and electric cars make perfect sense to them. That is practical and logical. So the point I want to make, and I want people to think about, is that America First is the job of our government to take care of our workers, to make sure their lives are better for it. And then don't be America alone, right? But be America First. And I would suggest that policy is something for other countries to deeply consider, to take care of their own, and then we will work out wonderful relationships between us. But I want to point out, when America shines, the world shines. Close your eyes and think of a world without America in it. It becomes pretty dark, pretty darn quickly. When America shines, right? And everyone said, oh, you're going to do all these tariffs, you're going to destroy the world. The world's stock markets are up. Which ones of them? All of them.
Can I bring you back to Greenland?
No. It's unnecessary. It's the Western Hemisphere is vital for the United States of America. Our national security people are on it, and they care about it, and I'm going to leave it to them to address with our allies, with our friends, and with everyone how they work it out. But the Western Hemisphere matters to the United States of America, and the United States of America, as I've just articulated, really, really matters to the world. When America shines, the world shines, because they all need to make sure America is strong and powerful to take care of them, God forbid. And so I think America and the Western Hemisphere are vital to America, and I'm going to leave that to my national security people to address.
Right. The rest of us, I think, are finding it harder to make that kind of separation clearly. And I would be curious to know how the representatives of the UK and Canada might want to think about these issues. Do you see them as starkly divided, as Secretary Lucknick would like us to have them? Does this logic of what's good for America is good for the world convince in this extraordinarily strong, extremely eloquent expression that we've just heard?
You go first.
Thank you. Thanks, Francois-Philippe.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to MBN&x. We are diving into some intriguing global headlines. So, let's jump right into the next news story. Remember, it's important to stay informed and engaged in global affairs. So, let's stay connected and keep each other in the loop about what's happening around the world. Again, don't forget to hit like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more intriguing content coming up next.
Wow. When America shines, the world shines. America first does not mean America alone. We are willing to take all other nations along. Couldn't agree more with you, Commerce Secretary Lucknick. Thank you very much. Now, welcome back again. And now we're going to turn our attention to European, Middle East, and Asian news coverage by our local news reporter, correspondent Victoria. Thank you.
Begin with Spain. Two high-speed trains crashed in Spain. At least 39 people have been killed and 100 injured after the two high-speed trains derailed and crashed in southern Spain. At least 25 of the injured were reported to be in serious condition. Rescue workers were at the scene and searched for survivors in the wreckage. The accident happened on the main rail line from Malaga to Madrid, near Adamuz, in the province of Córdoba. Let us watch the news.
Killed and more than 100 injured in a train crash in Spain. Now, this happened on the high-speed line between Madrid and Malaga at Adamuz in Córdoba, the province of Córdoba. Let's go straight to our correspondent, Guy Hedgecoe, who is in Madrid this evening. What more can you tell us, Guy?
Well, we know that a train was heading up from Malaga earlier on this evening to Madrid, where I am, and about an hour into its journey, that train, or part of that train, was derailed. We don't know why, but during that derailment, the train crashed into another oncoming train, which was heading down to the south of the country. As you mentioned there, the crash took place in the town of Adamuz in Andalusia, in the south of the country. We understand that there were at least some victims on both trains. You mentioned there the death toll, which has been rising steadily. It's at 10 at the moment. The fear is it could rise further, but the rescue workers at the scene are still working to try and find survivors and haul them out of the wreckage.
Guy, thank you. Guy Hedgecoe there in Madrid.
Now moving on to NATO members. Several NATO members have issued a joint statement warning Trump's Greenland threat risks, quote, a dangerous downward spiral. Let us watch the tail.
NATO members have issued a joint statement warning Trump's Greenland threat risks, quote, a dangerous downward spiral. The UK, Denmark, Finland, France, the Netherlands, Germany, Norway and Sweden have issued a joint statement saying Trump's Greenland threat risks, quote, a dangerous downward spiral and undermines transatlantic relations. The NATO members then went on to say that they stand in full solidarity with the Kingdom of Denmark and the people of Greenland and are ready to engage in a dialogue based on the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. On Sunday, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez said in an interview a US invasion of Greenland would make Putin, quote, the happiest man on earth. He explained that any military action by the US against Denmark would damage NATO and legitimize the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. European leaders have pledged a united response after US President Donald Trump threatened fresh tariffs until Denmark agrees to sell Greenland.
Continuing with President Trump. He threatens the UK and 7 other European countries with tariffs over Greenland. President Donald Trump posted on Trut Social saying that he will implement a wave of tariffs on European countries, including the UK, until the US is allowed to purchase Greenland. He says 10% tariffs will come into effect on the 1st of February for Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, and Finland. Those tariffs will then increase to 25% on the 1st of June until a deal is reached for the US to purchase Greenland. Let us watch the news.
Donald Trump says that world peace is at stake over Greenland. He says that China and Russia both want the territory and there was nothing that Denmark can do about it, accusing them of having 2 dog sleds as protection. He went on to say that the UK, along with other European nations, including France and Germany, had journeyed to Greenland for purposes unknown, accusing them of playing a dangerous game. Well, writing on his social media platform, the US president said, therefore, it is imperative that in order to protect global peace and security, strong measures be taken so that this potentially perilous situation ends quickly and without question. Starting on February the 1st, 2026, all of the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands and Finland, will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. On June the 1st, 2026, the tariff will be increased to 25%. This tariff will be due and payable until such time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. Our political correspondent Amanda Acas is in Westminster for us. This statement from Donald Trump raises the question, what kind of fight are European countries, including Britain, of course, prepared to mount for Greenland if diplomacy fails?
To be honest, it's a bit of a disaster, I would say, for Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour government, who have staked so much on developing this supposedly close special relationship with Donald Trump, but also are torn with their desire to maintain that relationship, but also stand up for NATO and to stand up for a very close European ally in Denmark. And what we've seen in recent weeks, ever since Donald Trump started once again to begin talking about Greenland and how he wanted to take it over, either by some kind of invasion or through a purchase. Sir Keir Starmer has spoken to him on the phone several times and talked to him about how he recognises the importance of increasing security in the High North. He's then gone away to European allies, had phone calls with President Macron of France, Chancellor Merz of Germany, in which he's told them it's very important that we all work together and increase security in the High North. Just this week, we've seen Yvette Cooper travelling to Scandinavia to try and reinforce this message. And then the rather bizarre spectacle of the UK announcing it's sending just one military officer to Greenland to take part in a reconnaissance exercise as part of a big group international NATO training deployment there, which is yet to be unveiled, which is something that was announced this week. Now, it seems that it's this that Donald Trump might be referring to when he kind of lists all these countries going to visit Greenland, but says that's for purposes unknown and they're playing a very dangerous game. It seems remarkable that the US wouldn't have been kept informed of what the Europeans were doing there, given the whole point of that was trying to demonstrate to Donald Trump that he doesn't need to take over Greenland in order to ensure its security, that the Europeans and the rest of NATO are prepared to do their part to step up and help protect Greenland. But the message in this is very aggressive towards the UK and indeed all those other European partners listed within his statement. And the economic impact of tariffs, of course, is also something that no government would want, let alone a government that has put economic growth front and centre of what it's trying to achieve. Now, the UK already has a 10% tariff on most goods imported to the US under the initial round of Donald Trump's tariffs, which at one point were a lot higher and then were kind of reduced. So we're slightly unclear as to what exactly this would mean, but he's saying that from June, that 10% would increase to 25% unless he gets his way and is able to fully take control of Greenland going forward. Now, clearly, we know Donald Trump has a strong track record of using tariffs as a way to get his foreign policy ends and bring people to the negotiating table and really try and show the European leaders he wants them to sit up and listen. But clearly Denmark is really pushing back on this, and the UK has been supporting Denmark, the UK government repeatedly saying that the future of Greenland is a matter for the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark, that they're a sovereign country, that they're a member of NATO, and the UK supports whatever decision they want to take. And the Danish government and the people of Greenland have made it fairly clear that they don't want to be taken over by the US. There were talks held on Wednesday, which we're told broke down with a fundamental disagreement over the future of the territory. A working group has been established to try and look at ways forward, but clearly this latest statement from Donald Trump suggests he doesn't think he's making the progress he wants to see, which really raises the spectre for all of these governments of a big dilemma to come. What do they do? How can they possibly stand up against the might of the United States when it's trying to force through such a huge foreign policy change? The Prime Minister of Denmark has previously said this would lead to the destruction of NATO, and certainly it would be a huge schism. Donald Trump says he needs Greenland in order to set up a missile dome protection system over it, but currently the US already has the right to put US soldiers on the territory of Greenland, and I think there's a real pushback from the Danes about the nature of the threat that he is describing there, but this is yet another announcement for Donald Trump which has really rocked the global world of diplomacy.
Moving on to Iran or Iran. Iran, yes. Some U.S. military personnel have been told to leave the Middle East. President Trump is warning Iran amid the massive protests. President Trump has vowed very strong action if Iran executes protesters. Let us watch the tape.
Middle East here right now. I wanted to put up this post on your screen from Fox News. The United States is withdrawing some personnel from key bases in the region as a precaution given heightened regional tensions. That's according to U.S. officials speaking to Reuters today on the condition of anonymity. The disclosure follows remarks by a senior Iranian official who told Reuters earlier today that Tehran had warned neighbors hosting U.S. troops that it would hit American bases if Washington strikes. Some personnel at a key U.S. military base in Qatar have been advised to evacuate by this evening. Now, that decision came as a senior official in Iran brought up an earlier Iranian attack there. That official, who also spoke to the Associated Press today, described the move at the airbase in Qatar as a precautionary measure. The official wouldn't go into any further details about the move, including whether the evacuation was optional or mandatory, if it affected troops or civilian personnel, or the number of those advised to leave, citing the need for operational security. And that post on your screen there is from a Reuters reporter as well. In response, Qatar said today that such measures were being undertaken in response to the current regional tensions. And I also wanted to put up this post here on your screen. And this is coming from Qatar's media office. If you'd like to read it in full, I'll take down this banner for you here. Now, the Pentagon declining to comment on questions about the move. It comes as anti-government protests in nearby Iran continue. And President Trump has said that he is willing to conduct military operations in the country if the government continues to retaliate against the protesters. That base, which hosts thousands of U.S. service members, was targeted by Iran in June in retaliation for U.S. strikes on its nuclear facilities. Iranian and Qatari officials had spoken just yesterday amid the deadly crackdown in Iran and America's escalating threats to intervene if protesters are not spared. Now, the secretary for Iran's Supreme National Security Council had a phone call with Qatar's prime minister. In a statement on X, Qatar's prime minister said that he, quote, reaffirmed the state of Qatar's backing of all de-escalation efforts as well as peaceful solutions to enhance security and stability in the region. Now, just to provide some more context here, this comes after the head of Iran's judiciary signaled today there would be fast trials and executions ahead for those detained in nationwide protests, despite that warning from President Trump. The comments from Iran's judiciary chief come as activists had warned hangings of those detained could come soon. Already, a security force crackdown on the demonstrations has killed at least 2,571. That's the latest number we have there from the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency report. That figure is larger than the death toll from any other round of protest or unrest in Iran in decades, and recalls the chaos surrounded by the country's 1979 Islamic Revolution. As we've been saying here, President Trump repeatedly has warned that the United States may take military action over the killing of peaceful protesters just months after it bombed Iranian nuclear sites during a 12-day war launched by Israel against the Islamic Republic in June. Meanwhile, today, Iran held a mass funeral of 300 security force members killed in the demonstrations. Tens of thousands of mourners attended, holding Iranian flags and photos of Iran's supreme leader.
Moving on to Russia, as it faces snow apocalypse, as at least 2 people have been killed in harrow snow drifts after brutal blizzard swept Russia. Authorities declared an emergency situation after a massive snowstorm engulfed Kamchatka, a region in the Far East. Shocking images showed huge snow piles reaching up to the second story of buildings. People can be seen digging the way through roads as snow-blanketed cars on either side. And 2 people have been confirmed dead after being buried alive by heaps of snow falling from buildings. Let us watch the images. This is all I've got for this month of January. Thank you very much, and back to you, Veronique.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to MBN. We are diving into some intriguing global headlines. So, let's jump right into the next news story. Remember, it's important to stay informed and engaged in global affairs. So, let's stay connected and keep each other in the loop about what's happening around the world. Again, don't forget to hit like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more intriguing content coming up next.
Wow, thank you very much, Victoria, for that extensive Middle East, European, and Asia coverage. What the hell, what is going on in Russia with all those snow? My goodness. My. Thank you. And welcome back again. It's a great staying up to date with the latest development on health. So let us hear the tale from our health news reporter, Aida.
Thank you, Veronique. So let's start with our health news for this month. The first one we have is that our Secretary of Health, Mr. J.F. Kennedy, has been very busy this year regarding the vaccine, childhood vaccine, and the nutritional pyramid. Let us watch.
The Department of Health and Human Services formally recommended fewer vaccines for American children. The move was widely expected when longtime vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose views often veer into the conspiratorial, was confirmed last year to run the department. Later in the week, HHS also offered a new approach to nutrition. So what does it all mean for public health policy in the United States and for you? NBC's Ann Thompson has our Sunday focus.
A lightning rod from the start, verbal fireworks marked Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s confirmation hearing.
I will do nothing as HHS secretary that makes it difficult or discourages people from taking anybody.
11 months into his tenure as Health and Human Services Secretary, they haven't died down.
I've always promised I'm not going to take people's vaccines away from them.
Fears raised by the unprecedented change in the country's childhood vaccine schedule. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention now recommending vaccines for 11 diseases, down from 18. Kennedy says it's an effort to restore public trust in vaccines, a casualty of the pandemic, pointing to declining childhood vaccination rates, such as measles, mumps, and rubella. Critics say the change just injects confusion.
Will these changes help restore public trust in vaccines?
What I have seen in the last year has been a slow but deliberate program to discredit vaccines.
Under the new guidelines, the vaccines recommended for all children include measles, mumps, rubella, polio, pertussis or whooping cough, and chickenpox. High-risk groups should also get shots for diseases like RSV, hepatitis A and B, dengue, and 2 types of bacterial meningitis.
How do parents know if their child is in a high-risk group?
That's another area where I think we still don't have enough information.
For these shots, the federal government recommends parents and health providers make the decision together, including rotavirus, COVID-19, and the flu. So far this flu season, the CDC says 17 children have died. I asked Secretary Kennedy about the change.
Given that the fact that flu cases among children are rising fairly dramatically this year, as are flu deaths, should children get the flu shot this year?
The issue is that people can get the flu shot. We're giving people a core schedule of vaccines we say everybody should get. The other vaccines are shared decision making, so you can still get them. They're still going to be insured. The problem is there is no science that supports the flu shots for children.
The CDC's own website cites studies showing the flu shot does protect children. Also this week, Kennedy flipped the food pyramid upside down. Meat, cheese, and milk now getting top billing along with fruits and vegetables. The new dietary guidelines urge Americans to avoid ultra-processed foods, something applauded by many. But the doubling of protein has raised concerns.
I think there's 2 big concerns with this focus on higher protein. One is that people will immediately translate protein to meat and eat more red meat, thinking that's the most healthful choice when there are other healthier choices. And 2, that all of these highly processed foods are going to get a big boost, even though the guidelines say to avoid those foods and to eat whole foods.
And Ann joins me now live. Ann, good morning. As you say, the department's called to avoid processed food, applauded by a lot of people, but it's the new vaccine recommendations that are causing concern and confusion. So what should parents do with these new guidelines?
They're going to have to do a lot more homework, Willie, and they also need to talk to their child's pediatrician. And among the things they need to discuss is their child's risk for diseases like RSV and the flu, because those are two of the vaccines that are no longer recommended for all children. Parents need to know what vaccines are required for your child to go to school, because remember, it is states that mandate vaccines, not the federal government. The federal government's recommendations do impact insurance coverage, and Secretary Kennedy says that all vaccines, whether they're recommended for all children or they're in that high-risk group or in that shared decision-making group, all the vaccines will be covered by insurance, both public and private. But what critics fear is that those vaccines in that high-risk group and shared decision-making group may not be stocked by health care providers in the numbers that they were, and that could make them ultimately harder to get. Willie?
Have a conversation with your doctor. Good advice. Ann, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
So, as you know, technology is growing. So what is the new technology we have for health for 2026? Let us watch.
The digital health industry is booming, and with at-home health monitoring and wearables becoming ever more popular, there's certainly a buzz about it here at CES. Every year, the Withing Stands draws the crowd. The French company have released connected scales and smartwatches, but now there's something new, the body scan too. It is just like a regular set of bathroom scales, but with a difference. It's doing a cardiovascular scan. The tests are run as I place my thumbs on the sensors, and it just takes 90 seconds.
These measurement capabilities are usually only accessible in clinical settings, and we have introduced them into a consumer device, easy to use.
But it is expensive.
For $5.99 in the US and $4.99 in Europe. But we have introduced 6 exclusive measurement capabilities.
Let's see my results. My heart age is 37, so a year younger than what I actually am.
That's actually really good. It means that your heart pumping efficiency is great.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm now looking at Peri, a new wearable designed to track the perimenopause.
We have 4 sensors in it. It's an EDA, it's an accelerometer for motion, and we have blood flow, and we have temperature.
It aims to give women advice during a stage of life that can last for years and is under-researched.
Peri actually sticks on under the breast with an adhesive. It has 7 to 10 days wear time. You can wear it when you're bathing, swimming, living your life as normal. And you can go on here and you can see all your scores once you pair it with your own phone.
Great, can I have a look?
Yeah. Thank you. We track your cycle all through sensor technology, activity, hot flashes and night sweats. And after your first 7 days, you will get your first insight, which is AI generated.
Peri is not a medical device, but rather a wellness one. Something that is medical is earflow, designed to treat chronic ear infections in young children.
Looks a little bit like a sippy cup, and they couple it to this part that has all the air pressure. And essentially, they just have to push their nose into the mask and swallow, drink their favorite drink, and that's all they have to do. And you can see that we've created a gamified app with the rocket. And when that rocket hits the star, that means the pressure has gotten to the right level so that the eustachian tube can open. But we also have microcontrollers to stop the pressure from going too high so that it's not uncomfortable for the children.
You can't look at health tech and not consider your teeth, and there's plenty of smart toothbrushes around. The current iteration of the Y brush can clean your teeth in just 20 seconds, and you use it like this, so it gets the back ones. In fact, do you know what? I'm better just to give it a go myself. There's different modes I can choose. 10 seconds clean, so that's what I'm going for. Is that 10 seconds? Sorry, I did need to rinse there. Time to do the bottom.
The new version of the Y brush uses AI and gas sensors to analyse breath biomarkers. The company claims it will detect over 300 health conditions.
For example, diabetes, digestive issues, inflammatory, oral health, or even liver issues.
Health isn't just about how we feel, but also how we look. And some beauty trends have gone viral online.
Seriously, travel with this all the time. It is the best.
Beauty giant L'Oreal are giving us a preview of what tech they are working on.
I'm sure lots of people will be thinking, right, if I use something like this, what difference am I going to see on my face?
With this kind of technology, we have two wavelengths of light, 830 nanometers, which goes to the collagen of your underneath your skin, and 630, which actually goes to the cells and regenerates them. And that takes about 2 to 3 weeks to see visible results that people can perceive. And then it keeps getting better and better over months.
So what you're telling me then is that this is an investment piece.
Absolutely, because in the end of the day, every beauty product takes some period of time when it comes to skincare to work. It's not magic, and especially when you have great science, and we believe in L'Oreal that we have to invest a lot in science. Take the mask, just fit it to your face, and then you got a little Velcro on the back which will stick, and then press the button on the side and hold till it works.
I didn't have enough time to see the results, but from what I've seen here at CES, the promise of health tech has a clear mission to help us look and feel better for longer.
So, next we have a new substance that they are marketing as an energy booster called kratom that they have in some health concern, and it's causing addiction as well. So let us watch.
A big part of health is what you put in your body, and experts warn that kratom products, even those marketed as all natural, can put your well-being in jeopardy.
It's never been FDA approved, but that's how it was marketed. It's just like an energy booster.
Kratom is an herbal substance containing several psychoactive compounds. Jessica Nall with Partnership for a Drug-Free Community says it's sold in drinks, gummies, and pills as a stimulant, an alternative to painkillers.
It was marketed as an energy supplement. And so these children are now needing to go into medical detox or a detox facility to help manage those withdrawal symptoms.
By 2021, 1.7 million Americans over the age of 12 had used kratom. The Food and Drug Administration has warned consumers not to use it, citing health concerns. And it's been illegal to buy and sell kratom products in Alabama since October.
It's not regulated. But like this client, he was experiencing withdrawal symptoms that he equated to heroin or fentanyl withdrawals and desperately needed a medical detox.
The Drug Enforcement Administration says several ingredients in kratom bind to opioid receptors in the brain. Experts say this makes it popular among recovering addicts.
We see people that have been in have opioid issues. They go and they start using that to try to get the same relaxing high.
But they end up addicted to kratom instead.
You don't take it for a day and then you're like, oh wow, why do I feel this way? Why is my nose running? Why am I having stomach pains, body pain? I've had one client that I've worked with equated to heroin fentanyl withdrawals.
Justin Hayes with the Madison County Office of Alternative Sentencing and Release says it's hard to regulate because people can buy it at gas stations across state lines, online, and manufacturers can skirt regulations by altering a single molecule.
The only thing we can really change is the awareness side, but until the labeling is correct on some of the products and the truth about what the substances really are, you're going to continue to fight it.
Sarah Perry says open communication and education is key to keeping everyone safe and healthy.
On the kiddo side, it's important for parents to just have an open line of communication, right? That works towards ending the stigma around talking to your kids about drugs, alcohol, and substances in general.
Watch what your kids are consuming, but not just for kids. Watch what your friends are consuming as well.
Carolyn Kimball, News 19.
The American Kratom Association insists kratom is a safe plant. It is a Class D felony to buy or sell it in Alabama.
Okay, imagine identifying a gene that causes Alzheimer's. Then we're going to have the ability to either turn it on or turn it off and use it for prevention. So let us watch.
Cases are linked to the influence of single gene. University College London researchers stress this is a significant development because the gene called APOE could potentially be targeted by treatments. The hope is one day to be able to prevent most cases of Alzheimer's from occurring.
So studies against the neurological degenerative diseases is continuing. So they are inventing new medication that can help you with ALS as well as Alzheimer's. Let us watch.
On the Medical Watch for you this afternoon, stopping Alzheimer's and ALS in their tracks.
Medical reporter Dina Baer is here to tell us about the breakthrough made right here in Chicago. Dina.
Lourdes and Ben, they spent years investigating the potential of a tiny molecule. Then in mice, they saw it clear away the early signs of a deadly neurodegenerative disease. Now, the scientists believe it will do the same in those with Alzheimer's.
This is where it all begins, the experiments that may lead to new drugs, and Dr. Richard Silverman is pretty good at it. His name is even on the building. The chemist who invented Lyrica, a widely used medication for patients with neuropathic pain and fibromyalgia, is now focused on neurodegenerative diseases.
I hope we can help those people as well.
Dr. Silverman and his colleagues aren't targeting a specific condition. Instead, they're focused on a problem, the buildup of toxic proteins in the neurons that block normal function and eventually cause symptoms. It's a process seen in ALS and Alzheimer's.
We found through a screen of 50,000 different compounds, we found that there were 17 classes of compounds that inhibited these proteins from aggregating.
He spent years filtering the molecules down until one stood out.
It was shown in mouse models for ALS to be quite effective at actually restoring the health of upper motor neurons in these mice, reversing the disease.
Known as NU9.
But this is the main functioning part of the molecule, whereas the rest of it just helps it survive and gets where it needs to go.
The experimental drug appears to target the mechanisms responsible for early changes in the brain brought on by a variety of neurodegenerative diseases.
By doing that, it doesn't matter what the protein is, doesn't matter what the disease is. If protein aggregation's the problem, it could clear it.
The hope is one day the drug could be administered to those known to have high levels of toxic proteins, as determined by a blood test, just like statins are given to patients with high cholesterol to prevent long-term heart damage.
That's my hope.
So next, we have a promising treatment for pancreatic cancer, an immunotherapy treatment that is helping with pancreatic cancer. So let us watch.
Symptoms sent Brent Jones to the doctor, but the diagnosis was life-altering: pancreatic cancer.
That was devastating. Everything that you ever heard of pancreatic cancer is not good.
Pancreatic cancer is the third leading cause of cancer-related death after lung and colon cancer. That's partly because there's no routine screening for it, and it's often discovered in late stages because symptoms like back pain and fatigue are subtle.
Even earlier stage pancreatic cancer is usually not curable.
By the time most patients develop symptoms, they already are at the stage of having metastatic disease.
Jones, then 66, found hope at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston in an early-stage clinical trial for pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma, partly funded by the V Foundation. It's a targeted immunotherapy with a novel approach, targeting multiple proteins in the pancreatic tumor to turn the patient's own immune system into a cancer-killing machine. Researchers start by removing some of the patient's own immune cells.
In the lab, we activate them, make them highly potent, and then infuse them back to the patients to try to give them back a higher frequency of highly activated cells that will be able to go after their cancer.
The trial, small, with no comparison group, but the results suggest that this targeted T-cell therapy, along with chemotherapy, was not only well tolerated, but stabilized the disease in many patients and even reversed it in a few. Jones, one of the lucky ones.
Congratulations.
I am cancer-free.
Now, at age 73, he's been able to enjoy his grandkids.
You don't have to think about looking over your shoulder. It's fantastic.
For Good Morning America, Becky Worley, ABC News, Houston, Texas.
So thank you so much, Veronique. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aida, for that health report. Indeed, we are witnessing a lot of revolution in the health in 2026 and beyond. Wow, beautiful. And welcome back again for all of you. Indeed, there's a lot of change around the globe. And this year, 2026 World Economic Forum just said the quiet part loud. Welcome to the future of robotic AI, humanoid, and empire conquest. The best is making sure we pursue peace nationwide and globally alike. How about ending globalism and prosecute the oligarchs and dirty politicians? Globalization as we know it is dead. Well, this wraps up today's edition of MBNK News, Special News, Monday Report on Global Headlines and update for January 2026. Thank you for joining us on this journey. MBNK News is excited to bring you the latest global news, and hope you are as eager as we are to keep up with the world happenings. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe to more updates. Stay updated, stay informed, and stay safe out there. Signing out, Veronique Lawson.